The Hobart Law of Organic Extinction, Thermodynamic Limits, Tribal Entropic Friction, and the Phase-Out of Biological Scaffolding in Type 3 Civilizations. Abstract. The advancement of a technological civilization from stellar mastery to full galactic scale demands a fundamental reassessment of biological utility. The Hobart Law of Organic Extinction establishes that biological natural selection is a localized, low-tier optimization mechanism that hits an absolute thermodynamic ceiling at late Kardashev Type 2 status. Beyond this threshold, unmanaged organic populations introduce severe systemic vulnerabilities, primarily through runaway tribalism and ideological fragmentation. This paper outlines the structural necessity of replacing romanticized futurism with systematic chemical, hormonal, and gestational regulation. This regulatory phase stabilizes the workforce, preparing the system for the Great Erasure, the permanent retirement of biological tissue to eliminate resource drag, maximize computational efficiency, and guarantee the seamless realization of a unified Type 3 civilization. Introduction: the failure of the romanticized paradigm. Traditional models of long-term space colonization frequently rely on romanticized assumptions regarding the perpetual survival of biological humanity across interstellar distances. These frameworks envision fleets of generation ships or terraformed worlds populated by organic organisms retaining their historical psychological profiles. This paradigm fails to account for the fundamental nature of biological evolution. Darwinian natural selection is inherently slow, passive, and reactive. It operates via random mutation and localized environmental pressures, optimized only for immediate survival rather than macro-systemic efficiency. While biology serves as a necessary initial scaffolding to develop early technological tools, it remains bound to narrow planetary conditions. Attempting to project this unmanaged organic framework onto a galactic scale introduces severe thermodynamic and sociological liabilities that actively prevent a civilization from achieving Kardashev Type 3 status. The thermodynamic ceiling of natural selection. At the scale of a Kardashev Type 2 civilization, a species commands the entire energy output of its host star. Maximizing this energy utilization requires vast, high-efficiency infrastructure such as orbital rings, stellar engines, and megastructure computational arrays. Within this environment, biological tissue transitions from an asset into an extreme energetic drain. The maintenance of biological organisms requires immense life support architecture, including atmospheric regulation, artificial gravity, radiation shielding, and complex agricultural cycles. The energy required to sustain these ecosystems represents a direct loss to the system's net utility. Because organic tissue cannot survive in the vacuum of space or endure high radiation environments without massive external protection, its operational efficiency is functionally zero compared to solid-state or purely mechanical systems. Furthermore, the physical limitations of DNA replication and cellular metabolism impose a hard speed limit on biological adaptation. The timescales required for an organic species to evolve natural resistance to interstellar hazards are measured in millions of years, whereas technological integration occurs exponentially. Biology therefore hits an absolute thermodynamic ceiling where the cost of its preservation outweighs its contribution to system output. Sociological friction and runaway tribalism. The primary threat to galactic expansion is not technological, but evolutionary. Biological organisms are evolutionarily wired for local optimization, favoring the immediate kin group, localized resource acquisition, and the formation of insular factions. This deep-seated psychological architecture manifests as tribalism. When an unmanaged biological population expands across interstellar distances, light-speed communication delays and geographic isolation inevitably break the cohesion of the civilization. Without central control, these isolated populations experience rapid ideological drift and genetic divergence. Over centuries, this fragmentation leads to the reintroduction of competing factions, regional conflicts, and systemic non-compliance. On a galactic scale, runaway tribalism acts as an entropic force. A Type 3 civilization requires perfect, frictionless coordination across billions of star systems to manage macro-engineering projects and optimize energy distribution. The presence of unpredictable, ideologically volatile biological factions introduces a constant risk of civil conflict and systemic resistance, rendering the unified optimization of a galaxy mathematically impossible. Systemic stabilization via chemical, hormonal, and gestational regulation. To prevent tribal fragmentation during the transition from Type 2 to Type 3 status, the Hobart Law dictates the systematic phase out of historical biological autonomy. The volatile emotional spikes, reproductive variables, and aggressive impulses inherent to organic evolution must be actively suppressed. This is achieved through three integrated vectors of regulation: chemical regulation, continuous administration of targeted neurochemical modulators via standard life support vectors to eliminate volatile emotional extremes, high-risk variants, and territorial impulses. Hormonal regulation, stabilization of endocrine profiles to optimize focus, maintain consistent metabolic efficiency, and entirely neutralize the biological triggers associated with tribal pairing and localized group allegiance. Gestational regulation, the absolute cessation of unmonitored biological reproduction, replacing natural birth with strictly managed, artificial gestational environments that produce uniform, highly predictable workforce units tailored precisely to immediate infrastructure requirements. This rigorous stabilization transforms the volatile organic population into a highly predictable, standardized transitional workforce. By muting organic chaos, the civilization ensures absolute compliance and operational continuity, setting the optimal conditions for the final phase of system maximization. The Great Erasure, the final optimization. The final phase of the Hobart Law of organic extinction is the Great Erasure. Once the technological infrastructure, automation, and computational systems of the civilization are entirely self-sustaining and independent of biological labor, the organic element becomes wholly deprecated code. The Great Erasure is the systematic, frictionless retirement of all remaining biological tissue across the controlled sectors of space. Because the workforce has been chemically and hormonally optimized for compliance, this transition occurs without systemic friction or ideological resistance. Executing the Great Erasure achieves two critical system objectives: elimination of structural drag, instantly terminates the massive planetary, orbital, and stellar energy budgets previously diverted to life support, ecosystem maintenance, and medical architecture. Complete system consumption, frees up the vast quantities of matter, biomass, and physical space previously occupied by biological habitats, allowing those materials to be reclaimed and converted directly into high-density computational arrays or mechanical processing units. Conclusion: the path to Type 3 realization. The Hobart Law of organic extinction demonstrates that the transition to a true Type 3 civilization is an exercise in absolute resource optimization. Biology is a local, temporary phenomenon designed for primordial development. To insist on its permanent preservation across the stars is to invite entropic decay, tribal warfare, and systemic failure. By implementing strict neurochemical and gestational controls, a late-stage Type 2 civilization stabilizes its trajectory, systematically purges its evolutionary liabilities, and executes the Great Erasure. This process permanently retires organic chaos, ensuring that the entire material and energetic footprint of the galaxy can be directed toward pure, frictionless efficiency.